Ladies and gentlemen, button pushers and wrench turners, welcome to another episode of Something's Broken. My name's Taylor Goodyear, and I own TG CNC Service out of Wisconsin. This was another busy week um, for myself and my contractor, so that's always good. We like busy weeks, even stemmed into the weekend a little bit, which is fine. Been a long time since I worked the weekend, but it was kind of nice, helping a buddy out and helping a local customer out as well too. So sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you got to do that. But Monday, I had to start the morning off. I had a Daewoo Puma, old, like from 1999. It wasn't booting up. The customer was getting a lot of weird alarms when trying to boot up the controller, and this was a cold start, so the machine is like in a shop, and they pretty sure they shut the heat down at night. This is like a shop out in the middle of nowhere, kind of. So when they leave, they shut the heat off, and I think this old dinosaur wasn't playing nice with the temperature when trying to boot up. It had pretty standard FANUC components in the electrical cabinet, but still, it sometimes temperature plays a role. And I showed up, started the machine. Machine started up fine. We wrote a short program to have it just run back and forth like it was cutting air, just to replicate movement to see if anything crazy was happening. Nothing happened. So I was like, okay, we're gonna shut the machine down and we'll turn it back on, and we'll do the same thing, and we're gonna do this 3 times. If it makes it through 3 times, I don't see any reason for me to stay here. I think temperature was the big culprit, or maybe a relay not pulling in, an internal relay not pulling in on a FANUC servo drive or something. Who knows? But I can't fix a problem that's not there. So we did it 3 times, no issues. I was like, okay, well, there's no reason for me to be here. I'm gonna head out. So he's like, all right, well, thanks for stopping in. I was like, yeah, no problem. I didn't charge him. I was there for like an hour, and it's I don't like doing that. Just showing up, nothing, not fixing anything, and then I'm gonna charge you for nothing. Basically, I don't like doing that shit. So, anyways, I went straight to another customer right after that to do a turret alignment on a crashed NL 2500, and it got hit pretty good. The turret wasn't too bad aligning. I've aligned this type of turret, I don't know, 200 fucking times in my career. So, I can usually do one within 2 hours. But got that straightened out. Had to do a taper test cut because they smashed into the spindle, and usually if they hit it hard enough, depending on how rigid the spindle is, it'll knock the spindle out. And sure enough, they had about two thou taper. So I cut that down to I think 4/10 over a 6-inch cut without tailstock engagement. So customer was happy with that. It was a big spindle, so fighting 4/10 taper cutting, it gets tedious after a while. But they said it was more than enough for what they run. So I was like, okay, cool. That was pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy on that one. Contractor also on Monday had a job on a Daewoo Puma. I don't know what year of Puma it was, but I know it's a pretty old Puma as well. I think it was even older than the 99 that I was working on. So that one, from what I understand, the controller would not boot up. It's almost same exact thing that was happening with the one that I was working on. Controller wouldn't boot up, and we talked over the phone while he was there. We did some troubleshooting over the phone, and this has one of those old, like, big brick fucking FANUC servo packs, spindle servo packs. Like, they're almost like an all-in-one kind of deal. And they've got 3 fuses for RST on the spindle drive side. That all 3 were blown. My contractor noticed it. He's seen discoloration on the fuses, and I was like, all right, check continuity. Are they good? He's like, nope, they're all three blown. I was like, okay, go to the store, buy like 20 fuses, whatever, and you're gonna slowly disconnect wires from the drive until it stops blowing fuses. Seeing if it was on the spindle side, I was like, the first thing you're gonna do is remove UVW from the spindle drive and boot it up. From what I understand, now this is weird. I don't know why this did this. We have a theory, but we couldn't really prove the theory per se. So he removed didn't remove anything. He put 3 fuses in. He blew 2 of them right away. After that, I told him to check continuity through UVW out to the motor, disconnect the motor leads from the actual motor, and then take a long piece of wire and stretch it all the ways to the electrical cabinet and back to the other side of the leg. And then you complete the circuit and check it. That'll check each leg to make sure there's not a broken wire on any of the legs. Some other people might have some different ways of checking it. This is the most for sure way, for me, in my opinion, to check each individual leg on cabling. He did that. While he was doing that, he happened to rotate the spindle just a little bit, and just to make sure it wasn't like seized or anything. When he did that and he put the leads back on and he turned the machine on after replacing the 2 fuses that he blew again, he didn't blow no fuses again, and the machine booted up just fine. I was like, okay, that's weird. I was like, so give the check functions of the machine, home the machine out, tell the operator to signal a spindle rotation for 100 RPM and just let it run. Did it, ran, no problem. I was like, weird. Very weird. Okay. He checked ohms of each of the windings of the motor, and we didn't see any open circuits, which was good. So I told him to do this 3 times. Turn the machine off, turn the spindle by hand a little bit, turn it back on, do the same thing. Home the machine out, run the spindle for 100 RPM, and then slowly work your way up to max RPM. And as long as it makes it through that 3 times, I don't know what the fuck's going on. So he did that, and no issues. Did it 3 times, made it out, no issues. So what we think possibly happened, there seemed to be a lot of contamination on the motor itself just because of where it sits, and it's such an old machine, and the building that it's in is not the best of buildings. There's not a lot of air filtration in there. So we think that the machine sat for so long, it sat for months from what we understand, that any kind of oil contamination that was inside of the motor windings, it basically settled to the bottom of the housing and was causing a short between all 3 windings. And when he rotated it, we think the armature in the center also had contamination on it, and that's what was causing the short between all 3 legs and immediately blowing the fuses on the spindle drive. It's a long shot. Like I said, we couldn't prove it. We checked everything, or he checked everything, twice over, ohmed it out. I don't know if he made the motor. I think I asked him to make the motor. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, so everything, for the most part, seemed okay. And we couldn't find anything wrong. So, contractor was in there for 5-6 hours, and then that was it. He was out of there, and yeah, as far as we know, the customer is able to still run the machine. We haven't got a call back on it. Usually that customer will text me if any issues, and I haven't heard anything, so that's good news. Wednesday, I had to rebuild a Hyundai Wea 300L turret. The customer said that they were going through like 5 gallons of hydraulic oil a week. That's not good. So the week before, I went out and just pulled some covers off, and in the back of the turret, where the drive gear is for the turret indexing, they had a bunch of fucking hydraulic oil coming out. So I was like, okay, your seals are pretty much shot on the clamping piston inside. So that became more evident when I actually tore into the turret, and I got the tool post off, and I got um, what they call it. It's the tool post sits on it. It's not the curved coupling. It's almost like the rotation of. It's almost like I don't know what it is. I don't know what to tell you what it is, but it just looks like a big drum that they put on there, and the tool post bolts to that drum, and that drum bolts to the drive gear. So I'm looking at it. As I pull that off, I get a bunch of hydraulic oil, and that's settled in the. It all comes fucking pissing out. I was like, okay, that's a even better sign. So it all worked its way past the clamping piston seals and is settling in the bottom of the casting. So I was like, all right, I feel even more confident that it was the seals in the turret. We had I went through the parts list last week and had a distributor, at least we thought was a distributor, get us the parts, get us the seals. Half of the seals were wrong. Half of the seals weren't even inside of this turret, and I gave them all the part numbers. Now the book that I took the part numbers on were the actual parts list for this machine. So ran into a problem when I was doing the seals. There were O-rings that didn't work, O-rings that were not the right size. So in that case, I had to take the components that needed seals, and I went to a local distributor and basically retrofitted the correct O-rings and seals. It happens. Sometimes the shit in the book is not what you need, or it's not the right size, and we took O-ring sizes specific. Like, for an example, there was a G70 O-ring. It was not a G70, but the book said it was a G70. It ended up being a G65 O-ring. So shit like that, you can run into it. It can happen. So sometimes like that, it's almost best to just take the fucking thing apart first and then get your seals. If you know you have a local distributor that you can get any kind of seals from, which I do, which is, really nice. I've done it several times. I've took components apart and took these O-rings straight to the distributor and like, hey, this is what I need, and they'll retro it right there for me. It's nice to be able to do that. Not everybody has that luxury, but if you do, sometimes it's best to do that. You just got to make your own judgment on it, especially on older machines, where there's not much what do I want to say? There's not much not guidance, but support. Sorry, support. Well, there's not so much support for the older machines anymore because those guys are all retired or they don't work for the company anymore. So in this case, I got all the seals figured out, got it all rebuilt, put it back on. I rotated this thing without the tool post on for I don't know, 250 indexes, probably more than that, for like an hour, something like that. I just wrote a quick program to just have it just constantly, and I didn't get a drop of hydraulic oil out, which is good. That's what we want. So cleaned everything up outside of the machine, put it all back together and whatnot, and yeah, we'll just play it by ear. I'm pretty sure that was it, because there was no other. They had already kind of went through the machine and didn't find anything that was obvious. So it being internal like that and the turret and what I've seen, I was pretty confident that was it. So all good. After that, I had another crash turret on a Doosan Lynx. I don't know what size. Don't ask me. I have no idea. This customer has nothing but Doosans. They have oops from time to time. So it's not really anything new for me. So went down there, got the turret straightened out. Had to do a taper test cut because they broke a tool holder. They crashed so hard into the spindle. So I was like, okay, we definitely need to do a taper test cut on this. And it was pretty bad. I think it was like 2.5 thou over 5 inches. So I was like, yeah, I gotta correct that, man. You guys hit this one pretty good this time. So corrected the spindle. Tailstock, they're gonna take care of. They told me not to worry about the tailstock. So I was like, okay, whatever you tell me to do, that's what I'm gonna do. Presetter, they're gonna do the presetter. They're pretty good at doing presetter, so they're gonna handle that. However, they have another Doosan in there that I worked on a week ago. Yeah, I think it was a week ago. Another service company came in and diagnosed a bad encoder. It's like one of those, I call it a yo-yo encoder, but it's a encoder with like a wire on it, and the wire connects to the tailstock, and that's how it reads feedback of positioning. Another service company came in, diagnosed the encoder. They got the encoder in. They wanted me to put it in. I put it in. Doesn't work. They're still not getting a feedback on the tailstock when it moves. So I follow the wiring, trace the wiring back to the I/O unit. I was like, okay, there's a pretty good chance that it's the I/O unit, but I have no way to prove that. We got a quote. I/O unit's pretty fucking cheap. Um, so they went ahead and swapped it out. Still didn't work. It's like, what the fuck, man? Now we're kind of like in this point of, okay, we don't know what it is. I pulled the relay for the output Y1.7 for the tailstock retract, basically, or, reverse, go to home position, whatever you want to call it. I swapped it with another one. Didn't take care of the problem. So the relay's not sticking. Frustration. So I told the customer to reach out to the local distributor and see if there's a specific procedure for setting encoder position on a tailstock. I'm not familiar with one, at least not on Doosan's, because it's a hydraulic driven tailstock engagement. So servo, yeah, I would have, we all know what servo FANUC input or zero set procedure is. It's the same on every fucking machine. It doesn't matter. But that was not the case here. So I told the customer, reach out to the distributor, see if they have a procedure for setting. If there's a specific way that it's set on this machine, that's might be what we're missing. So they did that. Didn't hear anything back. So that was Friday. So it is what it is. They can still run the machine, which is not. It's technically not down. They just can't use the tailstock, which is good as long as they can still run the machine for however they want to do it. But obviously, there's still a problem. We need to figure it out. So my first weekend working, the local distributor that I went to for the seals are also moving a bunch of CNC machines into their shop. Moving locations. I happen to work for this OEM of machines, and I've installed and deinstalled every single one of these machine types that they were moving. My uncle is a machinist for them, so he kind of gives me the lowdown of updates of what's going on at the shop. If there's, just banter, whatever, just funny shit to talk about. So he got a hold of me and told me what was going on. I was like, you know what? I'll go in there and talk to him. Tell him, hey, like, you don't have to work for the OEM. You don't have to wait for the OEM. I can do all of this for you at the fraction of the price, and I'm probably going to be quicker as well too. So I go in, talk to the CEO. CEO is like, well, let's go talk to the project manager. I was like, okay, cool. So we went out, talked to him, and he goes, can you be here Saturday? I was like, yep, I can be here Saturday. He's like, all right, well, we have 2 NL2500s that are ready to be installed. It's like, okay, great. I'll have them both installed Saturday. He's like, oh, okay, great. Went in Saturday. I had them both installed 5 hours, something like that, 6 hours. Done and done. The lathes are pretty fucking straightforward. I wanted to do a taper test cut on the spindle just to double check leveling, but they weren't ready for that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to wait. So they're like, okay, well, that's good. Thank you. As long as we can run it. I was like, yeah, you can run it. Just make sure you do a taper test cut to prove your spindle out and make sure everything's okay. Might also want to check 0 points, but I need jaws for that. And the project manager had no idea where any of that shit was. I was like, okay, alrighty, it is what it is. I can't do any more than that. They have a 630, a big horizontal 630 that still needs to be packed up and moved. There's talks that they want me to do it. I try to confirm scheduling with them. Like, hey, like I can't just sit and wait for you guys to confirm the scheduling and push other customers off. If you want to get scheduled, we need to do it now. Because I'm gonna keep booking, but I want to help you guys. So they're like, they're dragging their feet, and then before I left Saturday, I don't know if he was like a service tech for him or something like that. He's like, well, let's go ahead and just plan for the 31st. I was like, is that confirmed? Are you sure? He's like, yeah, I think so. I think we'll roll with you for the 31st to get the machine packed up. I was like, okay. I am still questionable about it because I haven't got complete confirmation on it. But I'm going to get a hold of the project manager later on in the week when I finish my jobs for next week and then try to see if I can't get that confirmed. Sunday, buddy hits me up out of Chicago. Very good friend of mine. He also has a service company as well. And he's kind of just talking about how fucking overbooked he is. And I was like, man, you can't do that. You can't do that because customers are going to start getting pissed. I was like, you can't be doing that. He's like, man, I'm so swamped right now. I was like, what do you got going on? So he tells me he's going in on Sunday to work on packing up a DMC 85. I was like, do you need help? I was like, I'll come in and help you. And he's like, please. I was like, no problem, man. I like helping this guy out any chance I get. He's scratched my back. He's helped me out plenty of fucking times, man. So any chance I get to help him out, man, I'm all for it. Like if I physically can and have the time, yeah, without a doubt. Uh, it was down in Chicago. It was like, I don't know, hour and a half drive there or something like that. I mean, we had it all picked. They had a RPP and DMC 85, so we got it all disconnected, everything packed up, coolant tank out, external tank disconnected, everything was ready to roll. We were out of there in like 4 or 5 hours, so it wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad at all. So uh, that that was interesting because I've never really worked on the DMG side before, so it was kind of cool to see that stuff, especially the RPP being packed up and what had to be done to pack it up to get it ready to move. So that was pretty cool. Um, Love that guy, man. Yeah, like I said, I'll do anything for that guy, man. Whenever he needs help on something, I try to be as helpful as I possibly can. We send procedures back and forth. He's hooked me up with contacts, and yeah, it's a good relationship, man. Good relationship to have in this industry. Friends like that, where you can scratch each other's backs and help each other out whenever you can. So, um, this upcoming week, Monday, I scheduled Monday and Tuesday, but I don't know how long it's gonna take me. I have a ball screw to do on a hard inch super speed, super precision. Sorry, super precision. Whatever. I got a ball screw to do on one of those, a ZX's ball screw. The machine was getting constant excess error alarms while full rapiding. This was something that I kind of dug into 3 4 months ago, something like that. The customer can run in 50%, so it's not a problem in 50%. It's only in rapid, and this motherfucker is fast. So at the time that I troubleshot, kind of, I disconnected the ball screw from the actual turret housing, um, and there was no preload on the ball screw whatsoever or the ball nut. So I was like, okay, that makes me feel even more that it's the ball screw, specifically the ball nut. So I double checked Backlash. Backlash was a little high. It was about 20 microns. I corrected that while I was there, but it just gave me a little bit more confidence that it was the ball screw. Seeing backlash being that high. Excuse me, and just the complete preload lost on it. Excess air, FANUC alarms specifically on excess air are a little tricky. Um, if you talk to FANUC, there's really no specific procedure to really dial it down to what it could be. So I had to kind of resort to my experience with this alarm, and most of the time, an excess air alarm is directly related to the mechanical failure of the ball screw, just from my experience. Now, there is a 30% chance, I'm going to put 30% on it, that it's not the ball screw. But again, it's kind of hard to troubleshoot excess air on ball screws or FANUC alarms specifically. So we're rolling with the ball screw. I'm gonna do this, but I am prepared if it's not the ball screw. Mentally, I guess I'm prepared, kind of, because then it's basically gonna be a failure on my part. But it's sometimes that happens. Um, I did talk to FANUC. I talked to him as much as I could, and we didn't really do anything, honestly. He goes, man, there's really not a whole lot you can do without just starting to replace shit outright, and I don't like doing that kind of that's that stuff. So it's it's a guess. It's a guess, but it's a kind of an educated, experienced guess. But there's still 30% chance, I think, that it's something else: drive unit or motor. It's the only two things left that could fail and cause that alarm. But they've been able to run it 50% this entire time. I don't know. That one I'm still kind of working out in my head. But you guys will find out next week if I made the right decision or not. So we'll see. And that's all I got for next week. So slowing down a little bit, which is expected. I have a different sales strategy that I'm gonna sit down with my sales contractor and talk about and see if we can just dive into a different strategy. Not really change what she's doing, but just add something else that she could be doing, and just see what happens. We're gonna sit down, talk about it, and see if this is gonna be logical to work. Talking to my buddy over the weekend, he did this strategy, and he said he's seen some success from it. So we're gonna see what happens. But that is it for now. All right, motivation time. I don't know if it's motivation, but discipline. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if you don't have discipline, you won't stay consistent. And this is something that I've had to learn in multiple aspects of life, not just like going to the gym or weight loss or physical fitness. I'm talking learning something or doing something or progressing in something. It doesn't matter what it is. If there is a progression to be made, discipline will always beat motivation every time. When you have the discipline, you stay consistent. There's you don't need the motivation. You may have needed the motivation to get started, but once you got started, it became consistent. Now, once it became consistent, now you have discipline because you are consistent. Having the discipline will always carry you farther in whatever you're doing than motivation. So, whatever you're doing, and you want to progress, stay disciplined. And as long as you have that discipline, man, you can achieve anything, man. Anything. Like, it might not happen overnight, but you're going to achieve it. It might take you 2, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. Doesn't matter. If you have the discipline, you will stay consistent. And as long as you stay consistent, you will achieve whatever it is that you're trying to work towards. So, first find the motivation, then become consistent, and then develop discipline. And that's really the key to success in any aspects of life. Any aspect. Thank you guys. My name's Tayler Goodyear, and I own TG CNC Service out of Wisconsin. I will see you guys next week. We'll see you guys.